Have you ever wondered, after the age of 60, what is it that truly draws a man to a woman? Is it youth, a slim figure, or wrinkle-free skin? Not quite. Let me tell you the story of Linda, a 67-year-old woman living in San Diego. After her husband passed away, Linda believed her dating life was over. She felt like a shadow, unseen, unnoticed. Until one day at a retirement group meetup, a friend said something that changed everything. "Linda, don't you see? Men our age aren't looking for perfection. They're longing for a woman they can truly love and feel at peace beside." That one sentence unlocked a door she had quietly closed for far too long. If you've ever thought your best days are behind you, that attraction is something reserved only for the young, then this video is for you. Today, we're sharing 7 qualities that make women over 60 genuinely attractive to men. And not a single one is about chasing youth. If this message speaks to you, please hit the like button, comment the number 1 below to let us know you're here, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the inspiring content we have coming up. Let's begin. 1. Authentic self-care. At 74, Carol from Portland began to feel the changes that aging brings more clearly. She used to be an energetic woman, always on the move, from dance classes to road trips with friends. But after a lingering knee injury, her doctor advised her to start using a cane for support. Though Carol remained sharp and optimistic, she couldn't shake off one lingering worry. Would her limited mobility make her less attractive in the eyes of others? She wondered, would anyone still find me desirable? Have these changes pushed me out of the dating world in this later chapter of life? One afternoon, at a casual seniors gathering hosted by the local library, Carol met Thomas, a retired photographer. They bonded over their shared love for vintage photo books, bird watching, and the peacefulness of early mornings. What drew Thomas in wasn't Carol's physical appearance. It was the quiet, thoughtful way she cared for herself. He recalled how she didn't try to hide her slower steps. Instead of complaining, she smiled gently and shared how she practiced simple yoga stretches every morning and had learned to walk slower, not because she had to, but because it helped her appreciate more. That attitude caught his attention. Carol didn't pretend age hadn't touched her, but she also refused to let it define her. It was a kind of quiet allure, the kind that comes from knowing who you are, embracing it, and living with self-respect. Carol wasn't trying to hold on to youth. She was choosing to live fully in the present. And that reflects a truth many people overlook. Real attraction doesn't come from trying to be someone else. It comes from showing up as yourself, with calm confidence and quiet grace. A study from the Institute for Population Studies revealed that older adults who maintain positive self-care habits tend to have higher quality social and emotional relationships. But self-care doesn't have to be expensive or glamorous. For Carol, it meant eating simple, nourishing meals, going to bed on time, and never skipping her daily reading routine. It meant making space for what made her feel valued. Not to impress anyone, but because she knew she deserved it. Elaine, another 70-year-old woman from Santa Fe, is another powerful example. After retiring and living alone, Elaine went through a period of deep fatigue and emotional dullness. But instead of waiting for someone to pull her out of that space, she slowly rebuilt her own rhythm, taking watercolor classes, walking the quiet path around her neighborhood each afternoon. A year later, at a local art exhibit, she met Daniel, a widower with a love for creativity who admired the calm confidence she carried. He later said that it was the peace in her presence and the steadiness in her gaze that made him want to start a conversation. Neither Carol nor Elaine tried to appear younger or sought attention. They simply lived truthfully and gently. And that, more than any outer appearance, is what made people stop and notice. Attraction in later life isn't about hiding the passage of time. It's about shining within it, with kindness, self-care, and a heart that's still open to connection. 2. Genuine listening. At 70, Margaret, who lives in Austin, began opening her heart to the idea of dating again after more than a decade of living alone following the passing of her husband. In the early years after her loss, she poured her energy into family, volunteer work, and taking care of herself. But recently, she felt it was time to give her heart another chance. She started attending gatherings at the local cultural center and community library, where older adults came together to share hobbies, discuss books, and occasionally enjoy lunch. Though excited about this new chapter, Margaret carried a quiet worry she rarely spoke about: her hearing aids. She feared they might make conversations awkward, worried about having to ask others to repeat themselves, or worse, that the devices would make her seem different or less attractive. But the reality turned out to be very different. At those gatherings, Margaret quickly drew the attention of many, especially Walter, a retired architect with a curious mind and an eye for quiet details. Walter later shared that it wasn't Margaret's appearance or eloquence that caught his interest. It was the way she showed up in every conversation. Even when she missed a word or two, Margaret listened with full presence. Her eyes stayed connected. Her gentle nods showed she was engaged, and her calm energy made others feel truly heard. In a world where people are often rushing to be heard, someone who knows how to listen becomes rare and deeply attractive. Science backs this up. A study from the University of Michigan found that couples over 60 who practiced active listening had stronger, more satisfying relationships than those who didn't. But listening isn't just about hearing words. It's about focused attention. It's eye contact that doesn't drift. It's asking questions that invite someone to open up. It's being present, a gift not everyone knows how to give. Take June, a 74-year-old woman from Santa Monica, as another example. After being diagnosed with mild memory loss, she struggled with confidence in conversations. But instead of withdrawing, she found a new way forward. She began focusing less on the exact details and more on the emotions behind the words. When someone shared something personal, June responded with soft eyes and heartfelt phrases like, "I can see how much that means to you." She may not remember a grandchild's name or a travel story's timeline, but she created meaningful connections through her warm presence. It was in a local art class that June met Harold, a photography enthusiast with a sensitive soul. Harold was drawn to her calm, open way of listening. He said she was the first person in years who made him feel truly seen, not judged, not rushed, just a kind woman offering her full attention in that moment. True attractiveness at this stage in life isn't about flawless appearances or perfect words. It's about how you make others feel when they're around you, and there is nothing more powerful than someone who listens with their whole heart. 3. Kindness toward others. At 74, Lorraine from Portland never imagined that her quiet routine of kindness could open the door to a new chapter in life. Every morning, she visited a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop. She never rushed. Instead, she made a point to greet every employee by name, offering sincere questions about their families, classes, or pets. She noticed who was missing from the regular crowd and remembered if someone had mentioned a sick relative or an upcoming trip. If the cafe was busy, Lorraine waited with grace, her smile unwavering. She wasn't trying to stand out. This was simply how she moved through the world. One rainy morning, as she held the door for a young man carrying a tray of drinks, Lorraine caught the attention of Malcolm, a 76-year-old retired graphic designer who had been coming to the same cafe for years but never paid much mind to the people around him. That morning, he noticed something different. He watched how Lorraine gently helped a child who dropped their toy, how she wiped a damp chair for a stranger, how she seemed to brighten every corner she passed without needing recognition. What struck him wasn't just the actions themselves, but how natural and consistent they were. She wasn't performing. She was simply present. Malcolm began arriving a little earlier each morning, hoping to cross paths with Lorraine. Eventually, a simple comment about the weather led to a shared laugh, and that small opening became a daily conversation. Over time, their exchanges stretched longer. Discussions about books, memories from their childhoods, thoughts about the world. Their connection grew without force or expectation, rooted in mutual respect and a shared understanding of what truly matters. What drew Malcolm in wasn't Lorraine's appearance or status. It was the calm strength of her character. Her kindness wasn't loud, but it was steady, and in a world that often feels rushed or distracted, that steadiness felt rare and beautiful. Malcolm's experience isn't unique. A study by the Life After 60 Foundation revealed that among men over 65, kindness consistently ranks as the most appealing trait in a potential partner, more than looks, income, or even common interests. As we grow older, values shift. Health challenges arise, families move or grow distant, and the noise of the world can feel overwhelming. In these moments, kindness is like a steady hand in the dark. It provides comfort, builds trust, and fosters connection. Take Mary Ann, 69, from Santa Fe. After retiring from a career in nursing, she found joy in small acts, sending handwritten notes to friends, delivering soup to sick neighbors, complimenting a stranger's earrings. She didn't do these things to be noticed. It was simply who she was. At a local charity event, she met Glenn, a retired pilot who was struck by her warmth. She made everyone feel like the most important person in the room, he later said. It wasn't because she talked the most. It was because she listened like it mattered. Kindness isn't flashy, it doesn't demand attention, but it lingers. It's remembered long after the conversation ends. It creates space where others feel safe to open up, to be seen, to be valued. And in a time of life where many feel overlooked or invisible, being met with genuine care can change everything. So think about the quiet moments in your day. Who have you made feel seen? Who has made you feel that way? Those moments might seem small, but their ripple effect is enormous. And sometimes the most beautiful beginnings grow from the simplest acts of kindness. 4. Confident body language and presence. At 75, Evelyn from Santa Rosa faced a quiet battle with confidence after recovering from knee replacement surgery. Once a lively and independent woman who hiked trails and volunteered at her local library, she now moved with more caution and relied on a walking stick for longer outings. This change, though expected with age, began to weigh on her sense of self. She found herself hesitating before accepting invitations to community gatherings. Where she used to laugh easily and move freely through a room, she now felt unsure. Worried that people would see her limp before they saw her spirit, that her cane would overshadow her presence. One Friday evening, she attended a small jazz night hosted at the town's cultural center. The music was warm and familiar, and though she'd planned just to sit and enjoy, something shifted. When a friend gently offered her a hand toward the dance floor, Evelyn paused, then smiled. Instead of thinking about how she looked or whether she could keep up, she focused on simply being present. She stood up, adjusted her balance, and stepped forward, not with the speed she once had, but with clarity and grace. She wasn't trying to look younger or hide anything. She was there, as she was, and that was enough. Watching from across the room was Leonard, a 77-year-old retired landscape architect with a quiet demeanor and a lifelong love of live music. What caught his attention wasn't Evelyn's movement, it was her presence. She carried herself with calm assurance, smiled when she made eye contact, and showed no trace of self-pity. Leonard would later reflect that her confidence wasn't loud but magnetic. There was a kind of still strength in the way she walked, the way she engaged with others. She didn't have to be the most agile or outgoing person in the room. What made her stand out was the peace she carried within herself. Psychologists have long observed that after age 65, attraction shifts significantly from surface qualities to deeper traits. According to a study from the Center for Mature Relationships, over 70% of older adults reported that the first thing that drew them to a potential partner wasn't physical appearance, but how that person carried themselves. Subtle cues, like posture, eye contact, facial expressions, and tone of voice, create a powerful impression. Confidence becomes less about youthful boldness and more about embracing one's story. What does this kind of confidence look like in everyday life? It's in the eye contact you hold when speaking with someone, the steadiness in your voice when sharing your thoughts. It's the way you sit upright instead of shrinking into a chair, the relaxed way you gesture during conversation. Confidence also lives in how you manage your own pace, walking with purpose, even if slower, and moving through the world without apology. Carla, a 70-year-old from Asheville, found herself transformed after months of feeling invisible following a long illness. When she returned to her local walking group, she didn't try to match anyone's pace. Instead, she chose to be present, enjoy the trees, chat at her rhythm. One man in the group, Peter, told her months later that what drew him in wasn't her recovery or her story. It was the way she made every person feel like they mattered during a walk. She didn't need to prove anything. Her confidence spoke for itself. As we age, confidence isn't about reclaiming youth. It's about honoring who we are now. When you let go of needing to fit a past version of yourself and instead show up fully as you are, people notice. And the right ones admire it deeply. 5. Warmth in voice, voice and tone. At 77, Claire, living in Minneapolis, used to take great pride in her clear and expressive voice. In her younger years, she worked as a radio announcer for a local station, where she delivered morning news with a bright, steady tone full of energy. But over the years, Claire began to notice changes in her voice. It no longer carried the same brightness or projection. It had grown deeper, slightly raspier, and lacked its former vitality. She started to worry that the voice she had once been so proud of had become something that made her less appealing. In conversations, she found herself repeating things more often or feeling like people didn't respond to her the way they used to. She quietly wondered if others, especially men, still found her voice attractive, or if it had simply become a fading echo from the past. Then one autumn afternoon at a poetry club in the senior center where she spent time, Claire volunteered to read a piece by Mary Oliver. As she began to speak, something unexpected happened. The room fell quiet. People stopped what they were doing and listened. When she finished and returned to her seat, her heart raced, anxious for the reaction. But instead of silence or indifference, she was met with warm nods and gentle smiles. A man named Howard, a retired engineer sitting nearby, came up to her after the reading and said her voice made him feel calm and safe, like he could sit and listen to her for hours without ever getting tired. Claire was stunned. Where she had seen weakness, others felt depth and sincerity. What Claire hadn't realized was that with time, a woman's voice may lose some of its youthful clarity, but it gains something far more powerful: experience, emotion, and warmth. A study from the Center for Communication and Aging showed that men over 65 actually preferred softer, slower, and more grounded voices over the high, fast-paced tones of youth. It's the authenticity and gentleness in a voice that makes people feel seen, heard, and comforted. In Portland, Louise, 73, had always been shy and rarely spoke during social gatherings. After undergoing thyroid surgery, her voice changed noticeably, sometimes soft, sometimes broken. She feared people no longer wanted to hear her speak, but instead of retreating, she learned to breathe more deeply, to speak clearly and with intention. And something surprising happened. The less she spoke, the more others leaned in to listen. When she met Martin, a man her age, in a watercolor class, he told her she made people feel heard simply by the way she spoke, with honesty and without rushing. Louise realized that a voice doesn't need to be perfect to be cherished. It only needs to carry presence. As we grow older, our voices may change, but their power does not. They may soften, deepen, or slow, but in doing so, they often become more emotionally resonant. What matters isn't how loud you speak, but where your words come from. And sometimes, the voice you thought had lost its charm is the very thing others remember most. 6. Enthusiasm for life. At 79, Irene of Santa Fe found herself drifting through long, quiet days after the passing of her husband. Her life used to be filled with laughter, weekend getaways, and late-night conversations. Now, the house felt too still, and time seemed to move painfully slow. She tried watching movies, knitting, even learning a few new recipes, but everything felt dull, as if a part of her soul had quietly shut down. Everything began to shift one spring morning as she walked through the park near her home. A small sign nailed to a wooden fence caught her eye. Beginner outdoor art class. Free. Everyone welcome. She didn't know why, but something in her stirred. Irene grabbed an old notebook and a few pencils left over from her teaching days and decided to go. The fresh air, bird song, and simple beauty of the outdoors brought a calm she hadn't felt in years. There, she met Leonard, an 81-year-old former engineer who had loved painting for decades. They began sketching together, discussing color tones, light, and perspective. Slowly, Irene felt herself come alive again. Not because she was a gifted artist, but because something lit up inside her when she talked about colors, shadows, and how she saw the world. Leonard later told her he was drawn to the way she spoke about life. Her eyes lit up, her voice filled with quiet joy. It gave him peace, a sense of being invited into a part of life she was rediscovering. Irene's story is not unique. Many older adults, after loss or major life changes, feel like joy has left them for good. But the truth is, what makes a person deeply attractive isn't youth or physical ability, it's inner energy. It's the eagerness to connect, to rediscover something, no matter how small, that sparks curiosity again. In San Jose, Ruth, 74, lived in a modest apartment and couldn't travel far. But she began noticing the wildflowers blooming in her neighborhood, documenting how they changed with the seasons. That simple habit brought her new joy. One day, while sharing her observations with a group of young volunteers planting trees, she caught the attention of Thomas, a widower who loved gardening. He said the way she described a flower with such raw delight made him want to keep listening. Passion, when it's real, radiates powerfully. It doesn't need to be grand or tied to achievement. Sometimes it's in how you describe your afternoon tea, or the pleasure of tending to a small potted plant. That sincerity, that quiet spark, makes others want to be near you. At 70, Janet struggled with severe arthritis and couldn't travel, but she discovered joy in writing haiku. Every morning, she penned a few lines and shared them with close friends. One of those friends, Arthur, admitted he looked forward to those gentle poems like a fresh breeze in his day. They grew closer, not through shared glory from the past, but through the simplest things they could still give each other. Sometimes, when you think your light has dimmed, all it takes is one tiny spark of joy, something that excites you enough to get up in the morning, to reignite your spirit. And nothing is more beautiful, more quietly captivating than a woman who honors her passions, no matter her age. 7. Positive personal energy. At 75, Helen, living in Minneapolis, had experienced more than her fair share of life's highs and lows. She had been a devoted nurse, the wife of a soldier, and a loving mother to 4 children. After her husband passed away from cancer, Helen had to learn how to navigate life on her own. Arthritis made it harder for her to move around, and some mornings it would take her hours just to get out of bed. But what stood out about Helen wasn't what she had lost, it was how she chose to face those losses. Helen never denied the challenges of aging, nor did she hide the sorrow of losing her husband. Instead, she focused on what she could still do, tending her small backyard garden, calling friends, and baking every week for the community gatherings at her local church. It was this quiet yet steady presence that made her shine. At church, people felt at ease around her, not because she was always smiling or overflowing with energy, but because she was real. She showed up with warmth and a peaceful presence that made others feel comforted. John, 78, a widower who lived nearby, said he was drawn to how Helen saw life. She doesn't ignore her losses, but she doesn't let them define her either. Being near her makes me feel like everything, no matter how hard, can still be okay. People like Helen embody a unique kind of allure, a calm emotional strength that doesn't need to be loud or flashy. According to a study by the Center for Aging and Social Connection, the most meaningful relationships for people over 60 often begin with a magnetic sense of positive energy, not physical appearance or activity level. It's the presence of someone who knows who they are, who values the present, and still holds space for what's to come. Margot, 72, is another beautiful example. After retiring, she joined a cooking class for seniors where she met Louis. Margot had gone through a period of depression after her daughter moved overseas, but she didn't let loneliness consume her. She began experimenting with new recipes, kept a cooking journal, and shared her creations with classmates. Louis, who usually kept to himself in the back of the room, found himself drawn to the way she described food, the way her eyes lit up when recalling a memory tied to the scent of a warm cake. It wasn't about the cooking, he later said. It was about the feeling of being alive, of sharing something real, of connecting. The beauty of older women doesn't lie in trying to appear younger or surpass physical limits. It lies in the way they meet life, with gentleness, with honesty, and with a belief that even as things change, they can still be beautiful in their own way. When someone chooses to live fully in the present, not chained by the past, nor fearful of the future, they naturally become a light that others want to be near. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You just need to be true, a person who has lived, learned, and continues to move forward with all the tenderness and strength that lives inside you. And that, at any age, is always magnetic. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay confident, stay kind, and most of all, keep embracing the amazing person you are. See you in the next video.